They fired the wrong guy. I have the code for $6 billion. Pay me $10 million, or you'll lose everything. He had to pay me $10 million to keep everything he had left. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on new interesting stories. Grab your belongings and get out. You are finished here. You are a fossil, Mark, and I am the asteroid. Sarah did not just those words. She shrieked them with a piercing intensity that made the glass walls of the boardroom vibrate. She hurled a thick, heavy plastic binder directly at my chest. It struck me hard, and I felt the air leave my lungs for a second. Papers scattered across the polished floor like the white, papery guts of my 20-year career. The entire boardroom went deathly silent. It was that heavy, suffocating silence where you can hear the faint hum of the air conditioning and the terrified, rhythmic breathing of 10 executives who were suddenly trying to become invisible in their ergonomic chairs. Are you stone deaf? Sarah slammed her palm onto the massive mahogany table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I said, you are terminated, effective this very second. Security will be here to escort you to the parking lot in exactly 10 minutes. I do not want you anywhere near the server room. I do not want you speaking to a single engineer. And I most definitely do not want to see your face when the quantum merger goes live next Friday. She waved her hand at me as if she were brushing away a foul odor. I stood there, motionless, looking at her. Sarah, barely 31 years old. She wore a razor-sharp suit and had eyes that had clearly never experienced a single moment of self-doubt. She had been the vice president of operations for exactly 6 weeks. In that short window of time, she had already axed 4 veteran department heads and declared that the legacy architecture was obsolete. The system I had built from the ground up, the very framework that was currently processing over $6 billion in global logistics contracts, was, in her words, bloated and archaic. My heart was not racing. It is a strange thing. When you realize you are holding a live grenade and the person screaming at you has just pulled the pin for you, you do not panic. You become incredibly, eerily calm. Sarah, I said, and my voice was steady. It was terrifyingly steady. You are dismissing me 5 days before the quantum integration. This is the most vital merger in the history of this firm. You are literally cutting the cord while the patient is on the operating table. I am dismissing you precisely because of the merger, she sneered, her lip curling in contempt. The auditors and the board want a lean, modern team. You cost this company $300,000 a year to sit in a dark room and write lines of code that a basic AI could generate in a matter of seconds. We have already revoked your administrative logins. My new hand-picked team can handle the final switch flip next Friday. We do not need a baby, Mark. We need visionaries who understand the future, not relics who are stuck in the past. I turned my gaze toward the CEO, Arthur. He was a man I had known for 2 decades, but right now he was staring intensely at his smartphone, refusing to meet my eyes. A coward, Sarah, in the revenue projections she brought in the media hype. She had the entire board of directors wrapped around her manicured finger. Arthur, I asked, are you truly endorsing this? Do you even understand how the Core 9 protocol functions? Do you have any idea who actually authored the primary encryption keys? Arthur cleared his throat, still refusing to look up from his screen. It is a strategic pivot, Mark. Sarah has the full backing of the board on this one. We are willing to offer you a 1-month severance package if you sign the non-disclosure agreement before you leave the building today. 1 for 20 of my life. I had skipped my own father's funeral for this firm because the entire global network had collapsed in 2017, and I was the only one who could bring it back online. I had celebrated my 50th birthday alone in a freezing server room, eating cold takeout pizza, while my family waited for me at home, and now they were offering me 4 weeks of pay to go away quietly. Slowly. Stay seated, Sarah barked. I am not finished detailing the terms of your departure and the legal ramifications of your exit. I am finished, I replied calmly. I buttoned my blazer and straightened my tie. You want efficiency, Sarah? I will save you those 10 minutes. I am leaving this office right now. If you walk out that glass door without signing the handover documentation, you get absolutely nothing, she screamed, her voice finally cracking under the pressure of her own rage. No severance pay, no professional reference. I will personally ensure you are blackballed so effectively that you will not be able to find a job fixing a toaster in this town. I paused at the glass exit. I turned back one last time. The entire room was waiting for the explosion. They expected me to beg, to plead for my pension, or to have a breakdown. Best of luck with the quantum merger, I said. Truly, I sincerely hope your vision includes a way to bypass the encryption keys. Get out, she yelled, pointing at the door. Away. I did not stop to pack my desk. I did not take the photos of my kids or my various awards. I tossed my security badge onto the reception desk and stepped out into the blinding, oppressive heat of the parking lot. My fingers were trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. But it was not from anxiety. It was pure adrenaline. Because here is the one thing that Sarah, with her expensive MBA and her killer instincts, had failed to verify. Here is the one thing that Arthur, in his desperate cowardice, had completely forgotten. The Core 9 protocol, the digital backbone that was currently encrypting every single transaction and data point for the multi-billion-dollar merger, was not running on the company's hardware. It was operating under a private license, and the legal holder of that license was not the corporation. It was... Let me explain how large corporations eventually screw up. They begin to believe that real power is found in job titles and corner offices. They forget that the modern world does not run on titles. It runs on code, and code is legally considered property. 8 years ago, this firm was on the brink of total bankruptcy. They were stone broke. I made a very specific deal with the previous founder, a man named Henderson. I developed the security engine Core 9 on my own personal time, using my own hardware, in my basement at home. In exchange for saving the company, Henderson signed a contract. It was a very weird, specific legal document. Instead of a cash bonus that the company could not afford at the time, he agreed to license the software from me personally. The firm was granted a permanent royalty-free right to use Core 9. But that right was strictly contingent on my ongoing employment with the company. If I was ever terminated for any reason other than a major criminal act, the license would expire instantly and automatically. It was a pill. Henderson had given me the trigger to burn the entire house down if the company ever tried to betray me. Henderson had passed away 4 years ago. The physical copy of that contract was buried in a dusty warehouse in Utah. The digital scan had been lost during a botched cloud migration in 2022. Nobody in that building remembered it existed, except for me. I drove home, poured myself a glass of expensive bourbon, and sat on my back deck. Within an hour, my phone began to explode. Notifications from HR, missed calls from security. I saw a text from a junior developer named Tom asking where the API documentation was hidden. I turned the phone off completely. I did not call a lawyer. I did not vent on social media. I knew I had exactly 5 days. The merger was scheduled to go live the following Friday. That was the moment when the quantum database would attempt to perform a handshake with my protocol to verify the $6 billion transfer. And that was the exact moment they would realize the door was locked from the inside. Day 3 brought the first major crack in their facade. I had kept my phone powered down for 48 hours. When I finally turned it back on, I had over 50 voicemails. 15 were from the new technical team, and 12 were from Arthur himself. I listened to a message from Tom, the 24-year-old kid they had promoted to my old position. Hey, Mark, it is Tom. Look, I am so sorry about what happened in the meeting. It was totally uncalled for. The thing is, we are trying to run the pre-merger diagnostics and we're getting a 403 error. It says the license is invalid on the Core 9 module. Sarah is losing her mind and screaming at us to just bypass the check. But the code is compiled and encrypted. We cannot see the source files. The system is asking for a physical hardware key. Please, man, just a call back. I deleted the message without responding. It was not a matter of malice. It was a matter of automation. The license required a weekly digital heartbeat from my active employee ID. When the HR department processed my termination, my ID was deactivated. The heart stopped. The system did not crash. It did not break. It simply locked itself, much like a high-security bank vault. You could look at the money through the glass, but you could not move a single cent. Day 5 was the day of total panic. I was at the local grocery store, carefully picking out some premium steaks, when a black luxury sedan screeched to a halt at the curb. It was Arthur. He looked like he had not slept or shaved in a week. He jumped out of the car, his tie loosened, looking absolutely wild-eyed. "Mark, for the love of God," he shouted. People in the parking lot began to stare. "Hello, Arthur," I said, calmly pushing my shopping cart toward my car. "The ribeyes are on sale today. You should grab some." "Screw the ribeyes." Grabbing the edge of my cart, the entire is locked. Logistics, payroll, the quantum bridge, it is all showing red status. We cannot migrate single byte of data. The merger is falling apart as we speak. "That sounds like a serious software issue," I replied. "You should probably ask Sarah for help. After all, she is the visionary." "Stop it," Arthur pleaded. Tom. She fired the entire QA team this morning in a fit of rage. She brought in expensive consultants from the city at $5,000 an hour, and they cannot even dent the encryption. They are saying it is military-grade AES-256. I nodded slowly. "That is correct. It would take a supercomputer about 1 billion years to brute force that wall. You paid for the absolute best security, Arthur." "Well, actually, that is the core of the problem. You did not actually pay for it." He froze. His face went pale. "What do you—" "I own Core 9, Arthur. Not the company. You chose to fire me, and as per the Henderson contract of 2017, the license expired the moment my employment ended. You are currently attempting to use pirated, unlicensed software to facilitate a massive federal merger. That is a felony, Arthur." Arthur looked like he was going to vomit right there on the pavement. "That is impossible. We own every line of code you write while on our clock. Check the archives, Arthur. 2017. Paragraph 4, subsection B. I leaned in close to him. You have exactly 48 hours until the merger goes live. If those systems are not operational, the deal will collapse. Quantum will sue you in the Stone Age. The stock price will drop to zero, and you, specifically, will likely go to prison for investor fraud. What do you want?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "I want a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I want Sarah there, and I want the lead auditors from Quantum present as well." "The auditors?" Arthur gasped. "If they find out the software is unlicensed, they will pull the plug immediately. If they do not find out you are committing fraud," I said, cutting him off. "Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., or I format the master drive from my house." I loaded my groceries into my trunk and drove away, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot. Day 6, the slaughter. I arrived at the office wearing a bespoke Italian suit that cost more than my first car. I walked into that familiar boardroom looking like a shark. The air conditioning was set to freezing, but every executive in the room was visibly sweating. Sarah was there, but she was a shadow of her former self. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hair was a mess, and I could see her legs shaking underneath the table. She was no longer holding court. She was hiding. Arthur sat at the head of the table next to 3 men in dark gray suits, the lead auditors from Quantum. They looked like undertakers. "Miller," the lead auditor said, "my name is David. We have been briefed on a certain discrepancy regarding the intellectual property." "It is not a discrepancy, David," I said, sitting down without being asked. It is theft. Sarah suddenly bolted upright. It is theft. He hijacked our internal systems. He planted a logic bomb in the source code to hold us hostage. Sit down, Sarah, I said, my voice cold and calm. Do not you dare tell me. I said, sit down. I slammed a thick folder onto the table. This is the original 2017 contract. It is signed, it is notarized, and it is ironclad. Core 9 is the exclusive, intellectual property of Mark Miller. The license was revoked this past Monday when this woman terminated me without cause. David, the auditor, picked up the document and read it in total silence. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. He eventually finished reading and looked at Arthur. Is this document authentic? Arthur nodded, looking completely defeated. Our legal team confirmed the validity of the Utah backup this morning. David took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Arthur, this means you have fundamentally misrepresented the assets of this company in the merger disclosure. This single document invalidates the entire $6 billion valuation of this deal. We can fix. Sarah shrieked. Just hear him, force him to hand over the keys. Go ahead, sue me, I laughed. A court case will take 2 or 3 years to reach a verdict. Your merger deadline is in exactly 24 hours. Do you really want to roll those dice? The auditor turned his attention to me. Miller, what is your price to renew the license for this corporation? I looked directly at Sarah. She was staring at me with a mixture of pure hatred and absolute terror. She knew in that moment that her career was ending right here in this room. I have no interest in renewing a license, I stated. Then, do you want? Arthur asked, his voice cracking with desperation. I want the asset. A total outright transfer of the intellectual property. You get the source code, the master keys, and total ownership. The merger proceeds as planned. Okay, Arthur exhaled, looking relieved for a split second. Okay, how much? We can offer you a standard severance of, say, $200,000. I smiled. It was a cold, predatory smile. Arthur, you are no longer paying for my time. You paying for my life. You are paying for every wedding I missed because the servers were down. You are paying for the nights I slept on the office floor. You are paying for the years of abuse. I slid a single piece of paper across the table with one number written on it. Arthur looked at it and literally began to choke. $10 million? He squeaked. Mark, that is extortion. No, I countered. Extortion is firing a man for being old and threatening to destroy his entire reputation. This is just business. Your merger is worth $6 billion. $10 million is a rounding error. It is less than 1% of the deal. Watch. You have exactly 1 hour. At 11 a.m., I am going home, and I will format my private server. The keys will be erased forever. You will have to rebuild the entire architecture from scratch. It will take you at least 6 months. The merger will die on Monday morning. Silence fell over the room. Sarah stood up again, her face contorted. We cannot let him do this. It sets terrible precedent. We do not negotiate with people like this. David, the lead auditor, slammed his hand on the table so hard a glass of water tipped over. Shut up. Sarah froze. David turned to Arthur, his voice like ice. Pay. If this entire deal falls through because of a $10 million dispute that you caused through your own negligence, my firm will sue you, your board, and you personally. We will strip this company for parts. Pay the man. Arthur looked at Sarah, then at me. Gary, Arthur called out to the company lawyer. Draft, transfer, $10 million. And one more thing, I added. What now? Sarah hissed through her teeth. I want a formal, written apology signed by both of you. It must admit that my termination was wrongful, and that the operational delays were due entirely to executive incompetence. I will never sign that, Sarah shouted. That goes on my permanent record. I will never work in this industry again. That is exactly the point. Tapping my watch. 55 minutes. Arthur did not hesitate. He grabbed a notepad and began to write. He was a survivor, and he knew when he was beaten. Sarah stood there shaking, looking at the auditors who were glaring at her with pure disgust. She looked at Arthur, who was already busy saving his own skin. She was completely alone. She finally sat down, took the pen with a trembling hand, and wrote her name. A single tear rolled down her cheek and smudged the ink. She slid the paper toward me. I, Sarah Vance, apologize for the wrongful termination of Mark Miller and accept full responsibility for the oversight that jeopardized the quantum merger. I read it, folded it carefully, and put it in my pocket. Wire the money, I said. The wire transfer hit my personal account at 10:47 a.m. I logged into the admin console on my smartphone, right there at the table, and transferred the master encryption keys to the company's main server. System is active, I announced. Green lights across the board. I stood up and buttoned my suit jacket. Arthur, I nodded to him. Then I turned to Sarah. She was staring at the table, looking completely broken. You were right about one thing, Sarah, I said softly. She looked up, her eyes, and read. What? You are an asteroid, I said. You burn very bright, you make a lot of noise, and then you burn up and disappear forever. I am not a fossil. I am bedrock. I will still be here long after you are forgotten. I walked out of the building. I passed the security guards, who actually nodded to me with genuine respect. They knew exactly what had happened. I did not go home. I drove straight to the airport and bought a first-class, one-way ticket to Tokyo. A week later, I was sitting in a luxury hotel room overlooking the Shibuya crossing, checking the news on my laptop. Quantum merger successful. Stock price up 12%. In other news, Sarah Vance has resigned from her position following an internal restructuring. CEO Arthur Evans has announced his retirement, citing health reasons. I took a slow sip of high-end sake. They had finally trimmed the fat. They just had not realized that they were the fat. I closed my laptop. I had a dinner reservation at a world-class restaurant, and for the first time in 20 years, I was not on call. I was finally free.